what's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be taking these Jordan 1 High Heritage and we're going to be turning them into a 1985 Jordan 1 Black Toe Custom. First thing we need to do is grab some acetone and cotton balls and strip down the areas that we're going to be dyeing and airbrushing. After we're done stripping down the proper areas, we're going to need to tape off the areas that we're going to be dyeing. You're going to want to make sure that you take your time when you're stripping the shoe down as well as when you're taping the shoe up. This is going to ensure that you get the best results possible. You're also going to want to tape up the toe box and the tongue of the shoe. And you're going to want to use something to make sure that you're tucking the tape under the leather if possible. Next step is going to be dyeing the leather black. I like to use a jet black leather dye, and I like to put this on, let it dry, and then put another coat on the top of that, making sure that the dye really soaks into the leather. You want to make sure that you're taking your time and being careful with the dye to get the best possible results. You want to make sure that this dye sets up for the proper amount of time and you buff it out before you start painting them. Next thing I'm going to do is grab some Angelus flat black and I'm going to put a few coats over the dye with the airbrush, making sure that I'm getting around the edges as well. Next, you want to seal your paint job up. I'm going to use Liquid Kicks matte finish. This stuff is easy to use with an airbrush or a paintbrush. And as you can see, this stuff gives you a nice, smooth, factory looking finish. A little tip is to use a toothpick to touch up some of the edges. Next step is to tape off the Nike swoosh, and we're going to use the same steps as we did before to dye and airbrush this Nike swoosh. You want to make sure that you take your time and don't saturate the Nike swoosh too much because you could chance the dye running through the tape and getting on the white leather underneath. Next, we're going to go back to the flat black and we're going to airbrush a few coats of this onto the swoosh. If you don't have an airbrush set up, you can just as easily do the painting with a paintbrush. And again, we're going to seal these swooshes up with a matte finisher. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay in the loop on any new videos we drop. Next thing we're going to do here is grab some more acetone and cotton balls as well as some Q-tips and strip down the toe box so we can get ready to paint it white. After you get your toe box painted white, next step is to move on so we can replace these tongue tags. To do this, you're going to need a seam ripper, some replacement tongue tags, and some T70 number 69 white thread. It's very simple. You just use this seam ripper to dig into the seam and pull out, which cuts it. You do want to make sure you're taking your time when you're doing this, just to make sure you're not digging in too deep and cutting into the tongue of the shoe. It should look nice and clean just like this when you're done. One of the original Jordan 1 High black toes that came out in 1985 to 1986 had a all white tongue tag on it with a black Nike Air. I am going to be stitching these replacement tongue tags with a Chinese leather shoe patcher. It's actually fairly simple. All of the factory holes are already pre-cut into the tongue. As you can see, this shoe patcher does an excellent job at stitching down the replacement tongue tag with no problem at all. Next, I'm going to take these bread toe customs that I was working on, and I'm going to show you a little trick to get this stitch line across the swoosh. Basically, you're going to take a needle and you're going to grab some white paint to match the white threading, and you're going to carefully go over the stitch lines over the swoosh with the white paint. It actually gives you a very close to factory look. Next, we're going to remove the factory Nike Air logo off the insole. And to do this, we are going to use a Q-tip and acetone. After we're done stripping the Nike logo off of the insole, using permanent ink, we're going to screen print another Nike Air logo in black to match the 1985 Jordan High black toes. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. It would tremendously help my channel on my journey to 1,000 subscribers. As you can see, if you take your time and you have the proper tools, you can get close to factory results every time. The Jordan 1 High black toe is one of my favorite sneakers of all time. What about you? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to leave a link in the description if you're interested in checking a pair of these out for yourself. I'm going to leave you with some on-foot footage